it also happens to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay actually. I'll be able to participate in other volunteer work, so I'm pretty okay with that as well. All right.
Yes.
So
Some
let's get. Yeah, have anything?
no. Let's just start. Let's just start.
All right. So we are getting started. So again, this is the same thing that I'm saying again. So if you have any questions, please feel free to click on share an audio video option, and I'll allow you to be on the stage and you can ask your question yourself. Meanwhile, we're getting started. So I want to ask questions from both. This question is for both of you. So working at Salesforce as a core developer, how's good? How's your day? How's going to day? I mean, what's your daily task? What do you do? I mean, you wake up early in the morning, grabbing a coffee, and what else do you do usually? What does day look like?
I will start, and first and foremost, thank you all people that join and is going to watch this recording after the event, because I am seeing that there is a lot of amazing things happening at the same time. So people might be selecting and maybe later will be taking a look at the recordings. My name is Julian Duque, and I'm here with Mo. We are developer advocates at Salesforce, working mostly with platform and pretty much enabling you and teaching you a lot of the great things we are creating here at Salesforce. So mostly what we do is, depending of the time of the year, I will say, starting with that, we are going to have like super packed agendas or mostly a little bit lighter. Why? Because we have like two major events, TDX and Dreamforce, and depending if we are going to be around those events, we are going to be pretty much all hands and full time working on that. So it is different than your regular normal day. If we are around those big events, we are going to be working towards organizing, making sure the content for the event it's ready. Sometimes we have like a specific role in that event that we need to fulfill. So a day will be full of meetings with a lot of teammates, other teams inside Salesforce, reviewing content, creating content, and besides that, doing what we do as developer advocates. Normally, in my case, is I work closely with a couple of teams, so I have regular meetings with those teams during the week, checking the new features they are releasing, so we can create content that are covering those features. We have one-on-ones with different members of the team. We try to keep in sync to each other to see how can we collaborate, or what can we create. I'm currently like taking charge of the code lives that happens every week, so making sure at least that one of us is going to cover this week a stream, that there is a content calendar for that. So we have like, it's pretty busy schedule. What about you, Mo? How is your day?
Yeah, thanks, Julian, and thanks again, Hamza and Pakistan Dreaming for inviting us here. As you know, it's pretty similar to yours, Julian, but it is a little different with a 7 months old. But
Of
anyways,
course.
so it depends. As Julian was saying, it depends on what you have. What is your priority. So currently, like Dreamforce is our priority. So my day is usually like meetings, just helping out with various demos for various teams. So currently for this Dreamforce, I'm working on Winter 23 release readiness live. That usually you see it on the YouTube channel or Salesforce Live. This time it's going to be on the Dreamforce stage. So we have a lot of prep going on for that, and my job is to build those demos this time, and then obviously developer keynote demos, helping uh, other advocates there. And during normal times when we don't have any events going on, like Trailhead DX or Dreamforce, let's say everything is normal, then we work on producing content. It might be Trailhead content, or it might be a blog post, or a video, or a live stream. So these are some of our content channels. So we pick up a topic, work on them, and produce content that's relevant to your audience. Also, we spend time in the community, like on the Twitter and different social media channels, our own Trailblazer community. Also on different forums, like for example, I spend a lot of time on Salesforce Stack Exchange, seeing what folks are doing with Salesforce technology, and specifically with Salesforce Developer Platform, like our like with Apex, LWCs, Slack, and things like that. Yeah, so it depends on what you have at that specific day. But usually we are putting together, like, our skill involves using communication, like those are soft skills, and then writing skills, because we write a lot, and then content producing skills, where we create these videos.
Yeah. And
And
also,
also,
I'm spending a beautiful Saturday at amazing
At
events
Sparks
like
100.
these ones, So
absolutely.
No, this is amazing. This is amazing. I mean, I'm very happy to see that how you were able to express this whole about. I mean, during the events days and without event days. So, how much you're involved with your project managers, and how actually the life cycle works. So let's just say the new assignment has been given to you. Actually, let me ask this one first. So, how much coding work in a daily basis did you do? And what kind of that it is. I mean, I just want to learn more information. Let's just say maybe you're working on the 12 module. I remember having a discussion with on a 12 budget DX. We're talking about this 12 pleasure modules that you work on. So a
Yeah,
little bit about that as well. So that would be helpful for the audience.
absolutely. I'll give my point of view. So obviously, we aren't going so deep into the code. Most oftentimes we don't actually. Um, but if things are required, we actually get into the nitty gritty details of the code. But most of the code that we produce is code that actually goes either in the documentation or blogs, or as a sample application, or in those Trailhead modules. So our job is not only to produce code, like typically when you're working for like a consulting company, or let's say for a product company as a part of the product team, your job is to actually build product where you are like coding, and you have an end goal to achieve. In our case, our end goal is to actually write code so that it is understood by developers who will be adopting it in their business application. So the way we write code is, or think about it, is very different than you would normally do it on other things, like when you're actually building up to get things done, right? So for example, let's say I'm building a small application to showcase like how this feature works. The idea is to actually keep it not that abstract, like show everything that's possible with it, as much as it can, show all the features, and make sure that our developers actually learn from it. They understand the syntax, they understand every line of the code, so that it becomes very easy for them to actually adopt that specific technology or specific APIs. And sometimes we actually write a lot of code, like for example for Dreamforce, right? So we are working with for example, I'm working with some new features that's going to be exciting for winter 23. So for those features are very new. Just the product team would have tested and nobody else. So actually that's where we actually put up a developer hat and just play with it like our normal developer would do. Just clone that specific API or a specific repo for our project and try to build something innovative. In that process, we learn a lot, like how would a developer use it, because when product actually builds something, they have a vision in place and they have a specific thought process. But what we do is we actually bridge that to the community, right? So we would actually bridge that product to how this is going to be adopted. So we are like customer zero for our product teams. So definitely we do write a lot of code. And you asked about what would the management cycle look like, right? Yeah, it's you can think of uh, think of when you are like working for a consulting or product companies. You have an end goal, right? And you are evaluated based on that. Similar thing happens to us. Like, okay, we have priorities to tackle. Like, let's say a new product is coming. Our job is to actually produce content. So we think code as content. Content is our code. Let's put it this way. Content is our code. We think like let's say somebody from the community is writing a blog post. It might take them just maybe a day or so. For us, it's like every line there is very important, so we treat that as a code. So it takes a real amount of work to get it done.
Hmm.
And same thing applies to trailhead module. Like I've been working on a trailhead module now for almost 4 months, which sounds crazy, because as a consumer you might just read that and complete the challenge. But as me putting together, I'll have to put different hats in there, and it has to go through different review cycle. So it actually takes a bunch of time.
Yeah, a developer advocate is a developer, so definitely we need to be writing code, not only blog posts or videos. For example, on the blog posts or videos I create, I like to use real code and write that code as like the best possible ever, because it's code that I'm using to teach others. So I want to put all the quality into that specific piece of code. And another good thing is that at least on our B2 moms, like our metrics that we have for the year, the goals we have for the year, we have one that says that at least we need to invest 30% of our time writing code, because that's also our job. We are developers and we need to continue writing job and investing in that skill. So that's something that is very very good, and I like it. I cannot imagine myself not writing code, so I need to be doing it.
Great, that's a great answer. I want to go to more of more of the tech product details, like just maybe probably functional licenses and Lightning Web components. But before going that, I want to talk about um, as a developer. I mean, usually in the ecosystem, what people believe mostly that the path is the way that first you get become the administrator, then you people actually consultant usually seek for the being a developer, and after being developer they look forward to have a CTA certification, right? This is a path, but usually in a consulting in world people see it. But I know that they are both, all of them are different paths, right? So in considering the developer's path, what's the goal? What's the end of it? I mean, for the architect level, there's a CTA, right? Once you become CTA, okay, that's a top level thing, right? So for the developer path, I know that the learning can never stop. I mean, even the CTA does their learning on a daily basis. The new stuff is coming up every day. The world is changing so fast. So what about the developers? How, I mean, the new technology coming in right now. I mean, before a couple of years, Latin Web Component has been released for the Salesforce. What's coming up next? So how do you keep up with all of those stuff? What's next you learn on a daily basis? Well, let's just say you spend 1 hour for learning. What do you learn?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very nice question, actually. And this is a question that actually takes. Also, I would like to add my own personal career journey here, right? Like, if you look at my journey, I've been a consultant for some years, maybe for 4 years. And then I became like a developer. And then, yeah, like just like you're asking, right? Like, what's next, right? When you're a developer and when you have worked on development for some time, specifically with technologies like Salesforce, like, what would I do next? Like, is CTA the right track for me? Should I go into architecture? Definitely. So it depends on what interests you, right? Like, for example, my personal passion is, code, right? So I like to learn about software engineering in general. I like to I like to keep my hands dirty, and I like to, always sit in front of the computer and, sort of spend some time working with code. It might, it I don't have any choice per se that okay, I need to be like an Apex developer, or let's say I'm just just know lightning web components, right? Development is a vast world, right? I, so that's the journey that I took. I want to get into development, learn more about software development best practices, learn more about how to write clean code and things like that. So that's one of my passion, right? So what's exciting there for a developer is, as you said, like one of the things I'm really passionate about is learning, right? So learning never stops, like as you said, and it'll keep on growing, right? One of the skills to actually master apart from like coding is obviously soft skills, writing and things like that. Those play a lot, even if you're a developer or a consultant, these skills actually add a lot of value. But if you're a developer and if you love developing, there are there are a number of things um, that gets changed, and I think that the path should be, to be a more of I would say, rather than like, let's say architecture, let's assume that architecture kind of doesn't interest you and you don't want to get into that CTA path, right? So the path would be like, okay, you become like a senior developer, and then you become mostly like a lead developer, right? And hopefully like something like you have something like principal developer or something like that. And then you basically go into the technology aspect of it, like trying to become a CTO and things like that, right? You keep still immerse yourself in the technology and code if you are interested, right? Salesforce architecture, I would say, is more of, it has more of a business skills, and the enterprise architecture skills in it. So it's really great if you want to really get into the architecture side of it. But if you want to get into the code, I would say explore other stuff. I mean, there's so many things to learn. Like for example, if you are just tired of Apex and LWCs, right? There are some new exciting stuff that's coming, like GraphQL, and learn other products of Salesforce. I would say like MuleSoft, like Data Weave is coming. It's a whole new language itself in MuleSoft. And also, I would say there's so many other things to learn, like for example, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and all of it. And all of these technologies are connected, right? And if you're like so much into code, one of the other areas that I could point you is towards open source. Be it Salesforce or any other technology, the open source will always be here to survive. So you can pick up any language. If you're like getting monotonous on being on just language, you don't have to restrict yourself to only that specific language. Like as you said, just carve out 1 hour of your time and learn something really interesting. Like for example, I learned, I would say like, I knew that Lightning Web Components were coming, and at that point, I was really interested into JavaScript. So I learned JavaScript, really get into depth of JavaScript, just not like LWC, right? I learned node programming. And then there are a lot of interesting things like that. Like, for example, I know that Python will be one of the things that Salesforce functions will support. So that's will be interesting to dive into. And if you're an Apex developer, right, there's no harm going back and doing some Java. There's absolutely no harm in learning those technologies as well, because they are hardcore technologies, and there's a lot more things you can do with them. So yeah, it really doesn't stop. You can pick your language. Like for example, if you like learning a new language, I would point towards Rust. It's becoming very popular these days, and we use Rust, and also Erlang. We use Erlang to build code builder. So things like that. Always try to find something new that's going to keep you excited about the future of future of computing and future of engineering. So there's so many ways to actually immerse yourself. Like I would say, find a way to learn something open source related, so that you can actually use that in your Salesforce as well. Like Salesforce is pretty vast, right? Open, connected. We have all the APIs and stuff like that. So try to like use the combinations of technologies to build your apps.
Mhm. For example, I come from a non-Salesforce background. When I joined the company, I it was not on my plan to do like Salesforce development, because I joined directly to Heroku, and mostly to focus on Node.js. I've been working with Node.js since 2011 and JavaScript, Java before. So my background was totally different. Right now, I'm starting to learn Apex. And I started a code live that I did on Thursday. Like, okay, let's learn Apex from the perspective of a Node.js developer. How a Node.js developer that has been working with Node for a while can build a problem or solve a problem using Apex. Now, what I'm trying to do is starting to learn things from the Salesforce platform where I can apply the knowledge I got outside in the open source ecosystem where I usually been thriving or working before. What Mo says is I'm 100% agree with him, and there is a lot of things you, for example, a Salesforce developer, if you want to start going a little bit outside, learning other technologies, that are like great opportunities. For example, the PubSub API uses the gRPC protocol, and you can use any language to implement integrations between Salesforce and other systems using gRPC. You can use Rust, you can use Go, Python, Node.js, any other that implements the protocol. There is a GraphQL API that has been released. You can use React or other applications to consume that GraphQL data and render UIs consuming that API. Now with the integration, for example, with AWS, you can now integrate Salesforce with other technologies. Salesforce functions give you the opportunity to write extensions for Salesforce using Node.js, Java, in the future Python, and maybe other languages. So the opportunity for learning is great. In regards to the architecture, I agree with Mo. It is like a more strategic. I think the higher you go, the farther you get to the code. So you are going to start like thinking more strategically than technically in code terms. One one good question that Jitrend is saying in the chat. Can you talk a little bit more about why Erlang? I love Erlang. Erlang is one of the programming languages I like the most because I am a telecommunications engineer, and Erlang is a functional language that pretty much was built by Ericsson to solve telecommunications problems. Salesforce uses Erlang, I know specifically in Heroku as the router. All the routes are being processed by Erlang. And I know Code Builder is also using it. I think the combination of Erlang and Elixir, but not exactly. I don't know exactly why it's using it, but Mo knows because he has
Yes.
been working closely to that project. So tell us, Mo, why
Yeah.
Erlang and Elixir is being used in Code Builder.
Absolutely. So, so one of the things that Erlang provides is obviously distributed computing and concurrency.
Mhm.
So, so Erlang is like uses lightweight, thread for execution. Like the processes can run across all the CPUs, and you can easily communicate through the messages, right? So it's also functional in nature. So concurrency, scalability, and I would say like the reliability, right? So these are the three features why I would say like Erlang was picked to write some of the specs there. And I was looking into some of the code base, of Code Builder, and not everything is written in Erlang. I would say that we use Node.js a lot for creating that auth proxy and stuff like that. But like other things, for example, like routing, as you said, I think even in routers, I think for routing, because Code Builder, if you look at Code Builder, right, I'll tell you something about interesting about Code Builder. So Code Builder was completely an interesting project for me to go look at the internals, architecture and code behind it, because typically Salesforce developers build their application in Apex and LWC, right? So that's how you start. Like you try to build an application on Salesforce platform, and Apex and LWC is more than enough if you're building a business application. Now, let's say you're scaling, right? You want something which is very scalable, You still don't want to take care of like infrastructure and all other lower details of that those applications. So in that terms, you actually pick up something which is like for example, DevOps Center is a good product or a good project, I would say, because it uses Heroku and um, Salesforce capabilities together, right? Now, if you think about code builder, right, can we build code builder on Heroku? Obviously not, because I mean, you can, but in terms of like the scalability that it will have once it goes to the production, it's far beyond that. Like you have to think about routing, right? You have to think it's a massive scale that you need there, right? And I think that's why what I saw was like they used Kubernetes behind the scenes. Obviously we use AWS and we code AWS there for for all our public communication. Obviously, thanks to AWS, we use one of their products, for sure, to sort of accomplish the infrastructure behind it. But yeah, we needed, there's routing there that, obviously Erlang was a great choice for that, as Julian was saying. And also we run lots of processes in there. So that's why I think Erlang was a good choice there. And yeah, that's the scale of the product, where you need something more than just Heroku and Salesforce to accomplish. And that's why I think cloud native technology is made completely, I would say like cloud native technology made total sense there, right? So that's why you need, when you bring in Kubernetes and things like that, it gives you more flexibility. And that's why I would say like, okay, if you want to learn a new DevOps tool, Kubernetes is the way to go, even beyond Salesforce, I would say. So yeah, that's something to learn, again. And yeah, because again, because of the scalability that we wanted, and we wanted it to be completely reliable, that's why I think they picked Erlang. If that answers your question. So
That's a great one. Actually, that's something new for me as well. Thanks to Jinder for asking that. I was about to ask this once as well. Yeah. So feel free to post if you have any question. We have 17 people watching this session. So again, so if you want to have come on a stage, please click on the share on your video, and you can ask your question live. I mean, there are multiple questions that are coming up in my mind. So let's just talk about this one. So which tools? I mean, I know you may be probably using VS Code, but what are your favorite plugins in VS Code that you do spend most of the time with?
mhm. I'll go mine. So
And not,
mine.
not just, I'm sorry, so not just plugins, but also the tool that you usually use on a daily basis.
Okay, cool. So I use, if I look at what tools I use, obviously VS Code is like my preferred editor for editing code. Um, and then I use Slack. I use Quip a lot, and then I use I would say Sublime Text, and almost sometimes if I don't have a tool, right, I look for the online version of the tool because I don't want to install, like for example, JSON Prettifier. If I have a JSON and I want to validate, I just search for JSON validator online. I just validate it. Same thing goes to anything new. Like for example, now I'm working with GraphQL a lot. So GraphQL editor is something that I use a lot. Julian actually mentioned that and also enabled our GraphQL product team to sort of use that GraphQL editor. So I use that a lot because it makes really fun to write GraphQLs. But what I do is I use Visual Studio Code. So you asked about plugins, right? My favorite plugin is to actually build plugins. So I love the ecosystem of Visual Studio Code plugin ecosystem, because now you can build extensions with it. And if you know TypeScript, you can build an extension yourself. So that's something really interesting, and something if you are trying to learn, right? I would definitely recommend how to build these CLI plugins and also build extensions. Yeah.
I always depends on the CLI. A terminal, a well-organized terminal is my Swiss army, and it's my recommendation for developers. It's to learn the terminal and master the terminal, depending of your operating system of choice. Call it Windows, Mac, Linux. Uh, you need to get the skills to handle the terminal. PowerShell, Unix terminal, either Bash or C Shell, uh, anyone. It's a great tool for developers. For example, I love using CLIs, Salesforce CLI, the Heroku CLI. Other tools help me a lot. Sometimes for quickly code editing, I use B or BI or Beam. But for projects, I obviously use VS Code, and I have like a set of extensions. Beside the Salesforce extensions, I use um, a group of extensions that it's for Node.js. The Node.js extensions by Node Source. It gives me a lot of different plugins to work with Node.js projects. And depending of the project I'm working on, I'm always try to find the specific extension on VS Code to have formatter, uh, code highlighting, etc. But my recommendation for any developer out there, invest in your CLI skills. That's going to solve you a lot of time, and it will give you a great way to do automation, for example, to create your own scripts and perform automation tasks.
And also Linux, like learn Linux, because you'll
Oh yeah,
eventually, if you learn Linux, you will learn the the command lines, and you tend to sort of go there.
I've been a Linux user since '97, like since I'm a teenager, and I tried to enable my laptop to have Linux again, and I screwed up my boot system. So I say, forget about it. I have a desktop with Windows, and now Windows has great support with Linux, the Windows subsystem for Linux. I installed that, and now I have all my Linux needs solved by Windows, which is great. I don't need to have like two different operating systems to boot and etc. Everything is under one boot, so I love it.
There's one more thing actually I would like to add. I mean, 100% CLI definitely. I believe personally believe CLI is more faster than the VS Code commands, whatever you do through there. And one more thing I like recently, I tried GitHub Copilot, and I found it really helpful. Did you get a chance to have work on that? Yeah.
What? Yes and no. I,
Wow.
for example, when I since I'm learning Apex, I don't know certain things. Copilot is always trying to suggest Java because the syntax is similar. So I need to disable Copilot while doing Apex. It's not that smart. When I'm doing JavaScript or Node, sometimes gives me a great recommendation. Other times I hate it. I'm very picky with my code. So sometimes for certain specific problems, I prefer to do it myself. But there are other things that I am not going to invest the time on my own, like the regular expression validation. Give me your suggestion, Copilot, because I don't want to spend an hour here figuring this out. It's already implemented by this AI. So yeah, sometimes it's a hit and miss, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the solutions, I hate some of the solutions, but some of the time, I would let's just say you are comparing times. You just have to. That's my habit. What I do is I do write comment first before writing the actual code, and the Copilot really helped me to give solutions, proper solutions of combining the whatever I'm gonna do.
Mhm.
So one time I was writing about the code, and I just write, okay, I need to compare these two times, and the next line it already populated the whole code the way I wanted. So I found it really helpful. And thanks Jitendra for mentioning PMD plugin and P2 definitely those are also the great plugins. Um, also, we are almost out of time, so just want to know if it's okay if we continue for like five more minutes. Is that going to be okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's good
Absolutely.
for me.
Good
Okay,
for me too.
awesome. So I don't want to keep this whole conversation because we're going in the right direction, and I don't want to go to any particular product, let's just say functions or LWC or and whatnot. I just want to keep our talk specific to helpful for the developers, even they're getting started or they are advanced developers. So top five recommendations for each of you. What are you going to give to the developers who are working out there either Salesforce or out Salesforce. Uh, what are this? What are they?
I,
Yeah, very. Go ahead, Julian.
Okay. So
I,
Julian, you
I
can go
just
ahead. Yes, first.
I attended a talk previous to this session and I love it. And they mentioned something that caught my attention is get your fundamentals right. Like the fundamentals of programming are very important. Sometimes we want to get into solve a problem and build a huge solution without having like certain fundamentals clear, and we are going to commit a lot of mistakes, add some bugs, and maybe we will need to refactor a lot the code and maybe not provide a good solution. So invest time in the fundamentals. Try to understand the problem you want to solve before getting into solving it, and have a clear vision of one of you what you want to do before start writing code. Once you have that, writing code is going to be easier. And another thing that's very important, and Mo will agree with me, learn how to write tests, how to write unit tests, integration tests, and always provide good tests for your code. That's going to like solve you a lot of problems in the future, not only for you, but for your peers, the people that is working with you.
Very, both of them very, very good suggestions. Mohit,
Yeah,
you want to add
yeah.
something?
So yeah, I would add a couple of characteristics of a developer. If I look at, I've worked with multiple developers, and here are some of the characteristics I think, and I was jotting down as I was thinking through. So one of them is obviously lifelong learners. Good developers to me are lifelong learners. Like they don't stop learning, and that's one characteristics you would need to have as a developer is like you should be ready for change, and you should accept change. Things will move on. Like for example, Salesforce was Visual Force. We had Aura components to learn. We have LWC. We don't know what we'll have in the future, right? So things will change. Maybe there's a new language that we'll have to learn to accomplish something different, right? Like for example, when functions came, right, we had to go back to Node.js and Java, so to get that elastic computing. So I would say, yeah, lifelong learners for sure. The other thing is never give up, right? So the good developers never give up on a problem. So if you're given a problem, usually it's part of learning to get frustrated and not get the output. I've seen it myself. You write the code and you're like, this is not working, there's something wrong with this. And that's how you start, like, this doesn't make sense. Like a lot of times you would have seen, like, this doesn't make real sense. There's whole bunch of compilation errors, and then there's runtime errors. Like you write all the code and then you get into the runtime and you find errors. That's where you never give up. And then when the customer actually starts using your solution, you'll figure it out that if the requirements were not met, because of XYZ reasons, and they'll come back with their own stuff, and you would have not even thought of those scenarios as well. So I would say a good developer never gives up. Lifelong learners. Obviously, I agree with Julian's fundamentals. These are very important. In fact, I suggest that you read on fundamentals. Like a lot of us don't come from computer science background. Like I did not come from computer science background, although I came from electronics background. I'm sure Julian too, came from electronics background. So yeah, I came from electronics background, and the last night I was not last like last week I was reading all about graphs. Like when I heard GraphQL, when I started digging into it, I was like, oh, now I want to read about graphs. Graphs and data structures. So I went back to, like, I was reading books on graphs. Like what are these graphs? How they are useful in terms of data structure. So yeah, sometimes you have to go back and read through it, and that's part of it. That's part of the fun. And I would say the other thing is, like, always have people along with you who not only like praise your work but also criticize your work. I think that's, at least personally, I have learned a lot from them. I always love to have people who look at my code. It's okay to get code comments in there. Like usually for young developers, this is my piece of advice. Like you have lots of energy going on there, and you always think that you're right. But your advanced developers usually are more vetted into the process, right? So it's natural that the first time when you write code or content or anything or any work that you do, it's not going to be perfect. So you have to like iterate and keep iterating, until you reach to some level of perfection. And perfection is not the goal, I would say. Like when you can get started, that's fine. And the last piece of advice is always get started. That's the I would say, like, the toughest things to do in development or any work is to get started. Sometimes it's like we just don't get started on the things. So as long as you get started and even make small progress, over the time you will see that things are going to be accomplished. So something that I think should be the characteristics of developers in a way.
That's wisdom here in just one answer from Oak. Thank you. This is amazing. I will share something, for example, that always helps to me is how I learn or how I approach learning is do try to solve a problem, try to come up with something that it's a scope that is not big, that is small, that has a clear objective that you can tackle in not too much time, because that will be better for you, and it will not give you a lot of frustration. If you want to, for example, okay, I wanna learn Salesforce development, and my goal and objective is to come up with this huge application that I'm going to be releasing in App Exchange because I'm going to get millionaire. You are giving yourself like a big, like a big problem. And if you don't succeed, you are going to get frustrated. But if you start with the small chunks, okay, let's first learn about how can I integrate a Lightning Web Component with Apex. You perform that task, you see that it works, it gives you satisfaction, so you can continue with the next one, and then with the next one, and in those small chunks, at the end, you are going to have something bigger. So try to divide learning by specific chunks that you can manage properly, instead of giving yourself like this big stress of a problem that you want to solve.
That's, to be honest, those are the best suggestions anyone, any developer can have in his whole journey. So I know we are 15 minutes over time that we've allocated. So this is the last chance for everyone. Anyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to post. And thank you so much, Jitendra, for stepping in and giving sessions, and Julian and Mohit for joining us. This is really great, and I'm sure that many of, I mean, even I've learned a lot of many things, like Erlangs and whatnot, that how it is useful, and I'm sure that this whole session is going to add much more value to the Pakistan Dream. And thank you so much for giving it time on the weekend and spending the time in here. Thank you so much once again and again. I don't think there's any questions for you, so you're good to go. I mean, I do have more questions, so maybe I'll be asking you in personally during during Dreamforce.
Of course. I share our Twitter accounts. Please go ahead, ask questions there if you want. For example, my DMs are open. Not sure about most, but my DMs are open. If you want to ask something like private as well, that you can reach out to me publicly. I'm also very responsive, and keep in touch. We are constantly creating content for you all. Follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. Make sure you follow also the developer blog, because we are constantly creating content for you, so you continue that lifelong learning career.
Yes. And yeah, feel free to also give us suggestions. Like, let's say you are struggling on a topic or something. Feel free to actually reach out to us on Twitter or any other medium by which you can reach out to us, like LinkedIn, and tell us that this is the area where there's not a lot of content around, and this is something that is getting used, and we'll make sure to see how we can sort of put those in our backlogs.
Actually, that's man, you very good question. I mean, very good conversation that you're having. I saw your tweet that what are the scenarios that why we are still using Aura component and not LWC. Actually, I
Uh-huh.
wanted to be I wanted to make it a part of this conversation, but we had ran out of time. But it was a very good. I mean, just one cent on what was the outcome? What did you learn about that? That what else we need to do?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, and actually, thanks for that tweet. And I got lots of responses with that tweet. So I was actually preparing a demo for winter release, right? And there are some exciting features that's gonna definitely reduce the Aura footprint in winter 23 for developers, right? But I wanted to find out those scenarios where people are still using Aura, so that I can think through putting together a demo that can sort of enlighten them on, okay, now there are new things that are coming which can help them. So that was my
So,
intention. And
so how
also,
long?
yeah, also telling the product that, hey, these are some of the areas where we need to actually step up and give Lightning Web Components more love. Yeah.
So how long you were gonna wait for to get rid out of this Aura components?
um, really don't have answer for that, because it's a multi-product team effort actually.
I
The
know, I know.
product teams will, but eventually, I mean, eventually we will have,
Don't
obviously LLC will be supported everywhere. So
don't ask such like difficult questions here, like please.
absolutely.
Well, I don't know what to ask that, but it came up. So
let's
I'm
let's
sorry to be.
discuss in Dreamforce with the
Yeah, I
PMs
will.
and
I
see
will.
what we
In
can
person,
do.
we'll talk about it
Let's get the PMs there, to answer these.
for sure. It was nice chatting with you. I mean, it's too good to be with you guys again. Thank you so much for joining. And
And
yeah,
thank you for the opportunity.
I'm gonna go quickly run the raffle. And if you want to leave, you can leave this conference. And
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
See you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye bye.